Welcome everyone. I'm Councillor Matthew Winnington, Campman for Community Wellbeing, Health and Care. Just some housekeeping before we begin. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room. It's not in the public gallery. By the stairwells, do not attempt to use the lifts. Please assemble by Queen Victoria's statue in Guildhall Square. No one's signed in, so that's fine. And there's no members of press and public, so don't need to do that. Please can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when they have finished. So just do some introductions. Start with you, Anna.
Anna Martin, Democratic Services.
Richard Webb, Deputy Director of Finance.
Andy Biddle, Director of Adult Social Care.
Biometric opposition spokesman for you.
Just giving you precedence. So I'm Councillor Graham Heaney. I'm the Labour Group spokesperson for Community Wellbeing, Health and Care.
Thank you very much. We have no deputation requests today. Apologies for absence. Okay, we have no apologies for absence given, but just to note that Kirsty Mellor has stood down as opposition spokesperson from the Portsmouth Community Independence Party with effect from the 11th September. So thank you for Kirsty's time as opposition spokesperson. Colleagues, any declarations of members' interest?
I don't have a declaration of interest, but I'd like to make a comment. To be quite blunt, I'm not really quite sure why we're here today, because this agenda has two items which are for information only. And as the documentation says, there is no information on impact assessments, legal or financial, because it's not required. It also says that the deputations by members of the public may only be made on the item where a decision is going to be taken. There is no decision going to be taken here today at all. We had a briefing just about a week ago where this information was presented to us and we had an opportunity to ask questions. So I'm thinking that by the time I shut up, this meeting's probably not going to last anything more than 15 minutes. And I can't really understand why we need an open cabinet meeting to decide something or to actually see something which is information. I mean, it would possibly be, to have this as an online meeting, be slightly more convenient as having battled my way through the school run to get here and then going to be battling through the rush hour to get back home again. So I'm really puzzled as to why we're having an in-person meeting. I mean, the Health and Scrutiny Committee has a lot of items for information and has all of its meetings online. I know it's a scrutiny committee, but again, this is not a decision making. It's absolutely right, and I have no problem with the idea of decisions being made in public forum meetings like this, because I think it's right to do so. But I'm not sure whether it's a good use of anyone's time for us to have a formal meeting like this just for items that are information.
Thank you, Graham. I think what's important about these things that we have coming to this meeting is the fact that they are public meetings, they are recorded meetings, and they are meetings that therefore people can be aware of what's going on. In particular, they're about some of the things that would sit most appropriately with this portfolio as opposed to any other nature of it. And I think it's something that in the past, you're quite right, you would only have meetings where there were decisions that needed making. But then sometimes you would have, you could have months go by where actually particular decisions weren't needing to be made, and therefore there's no opportunity for people to see exactly what's going on in a formal decision-making meeting. And one of these things is about having the things like the Victory Unit update and the working with autism and neurodivergent with transition is because they are current things that this is the appropriate forum for them to be done. And as they come under my responsibility, I want to make sure that that is done in a transparent way and not handed off to a committee who might not have been involved with those at all, but indeed to be done from a place of the person making the decision and who has responsibility for them is presenting them in a public forum. So that's why we do this now. As I say, when I took over originally in 2018, it was very rare we would do any reports just for noting at all. So this is part of just making things a bit more transparent, but also the opportunity to have those in the formal meeting.
Well, I sort of understand where you're coming from, but I still think it would be appropriate to maybe consider having these meetings online rather than having to be physically in here, because there is no decision taking, and as far as I understand it, as long as you're not taking a decision, you can have an online meeting. Certainly be more convenient for those of us who work and have to take time out to come into meetings. I mean, the other thing is the question of publicity. I mean, if it's for members, we've got MIS, which you could inform members of. It could go as an MIS item. It could also go as a report directly to members for their information. In terms of the public, I mean, the council has lots of opportunities to publicise what it does and put information out about it, and it's a question of choosing the most appropriate form for those who might be interested. I mean, what I obviously know it's important, I don't think we're going to get crowds of people sitting here watching us discussing this today, much to our, your regret. But so I do think we need to rethink this, because I think 2 items on information is just not a good use of time.
Well, thank you very much, Graham. I will take that under advisement. So we will move swiftly on to the item number 3, which is working with autism and neurodivergence, including transition. Andy.
Thank you. So the paper is an update to a paper that we brought to the portfolio meeting in December of last year, where we were talking about the work that we were starting in adult social care, working with people that are autistic and identify as neurodivergent in the city. We've included an update through page 1 into page 2 around the Room 1 facility, currently located at Charles Dickens. And this has been a co-created resource for our residents in the city, and has become a very flexible resource, not only offering scheduled sessions for people on specific topics, but also offering drop-in. We know that services in the city, people in the city can experience a lot of stress, can need to call upon support without necessarily having to book an appointment, and that's been really useful for Room 1. The next item under 4.2 is around employment support. We've engaged the U Trust to provide employment support for people with autism and those who identify as neurodivergent in our city, and to accept referrals from anyone that has a relevant referral, really. This is really important. We know that for all of our residents that employment can help them in many ways. It's affirming in terms of the contribution they make to society, but also giving them purpose. And we know that people, particularly with autism, are underemployed in our society. And so this has been a really positive development in the last few months. On that service, I've put the link there. And at the survey, the link has several examples of how they've helped people into employment or to maintain employment. We then go on under point 5 and 5.1 to talk about the transition team and include the staff members that we've employed there. For some people coming through transition, for those of our younger citizens that need a service when they turn 18, they can often fall through the gaps. If they haven't been referred previously through other children's services, or their presence hasn't been made known to adult services. And so the transition team is really important to make sure that people have the support that they need going into adult life, the opportunities that they need, and can go on to lead independent and healthy lives. And so our transition team, we've talked as well about the protocol that is currently under review to make sure that both children, families and adult social care are working together with our citizens that need it, and there's a clear pathway for people that need support. And then we've talked about the safeguarding, those people that need safeguarding support as they turn 18. It's a truism that children's services are structured very differently from adult services, and that unless it's clearly identified that often people can fall through the gaps when they have particular vulnerabilities and may need support and advice from a safeguarding perspective. We then come on to talk about workforce development, particularly around the Oliver McGowan training. And we are rolling out training in the city for all of those that work with people with learning disability, and the Portsmouth Autism Community Forum are helping us to ensure that we've got people with lived experience informing and guiding that training that we provide to our staff. We then go on under number 7, under point 7, to talk about our next steps. The Public Health Transformation Fund has enabled us to employ a resource specifically to embed best practice and to make this work that we're talking about in this paper business as usual, rather than something we're piloting or just starting. So the most important bit really, though, is the outcomes, so point 8. Whilst what we've talked about in the rest of the paper is around structure, we have 2 case studies here labelled A and B that talk about our residents, real people, who have made use of our services and who have fed back to us that those services have helped them make positive changes in their lives. Those services have helped them not feel isolated and alone, and have enabled them to contribute to their society as well as to offer them support. So that's the most important bit of the paper in my view, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Andy. Any questions, comments? Brian?
Andy, simply because I don't know. So I'm chair of the scrutiny panel for children and young adults. Our figures are, I've got to be careful what I say now. Our figures are not as good as I thought they would be with children, young adults being in employment, and I presume yours are the same really. You're not happy with the figures. Do we work together? Do the children, young adults work together with you to try and find them? Because I think we've got less than, 375 who should be, or hopefully should be, either in education or in training or in work. Out of the 375, I think there's something like about 160 who are doing absolutely nothing. Do the 2 departments work together on this? Do you work together with them, or what's happening there? Thank you.
Where people have needs, so where people are going to have needs for support through adult social care, then absolutely that'll be joined up. So when our younger citizens are transitioning, when they're going to turn 18 and they have particular needs for support, employment would be one of those things that we'd look at. It would also be noted if the young person has a health and care plan, education, health and care plan, then we'd be aware of those and we'd be working with them through transition. For those of our younger citizens who wouldn't necessarily be identified as having needs for adult social care, then probably not, I would have to say. Yeah. So if they've still got needs, if we're thinking they still will need support post 18 and adult social care is the right agency, then yeah, absolutely.
I've got most of the figures in my brain, but I haven't got the figures of the children who would come under, well, young adults who would come under what you're talking about there. But we must have some. I can't believe out of 375 we haven't got some autistic or whatever they may be. So would they come under you and us, or are they just with you?
So the support that they'd receive as children would come under children's social care, but as soon as they turn 18, the support would be focused through adult social care. Depending on, so if younger people have been in care, if they've been termed as looked after children prior to turning 18, then there's certain duties and responsibilities that the children's social care would still have toward them, but adult social care would be involved because even those responsibilities will come to an end at some stage in their young adulthood.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Chair.
Graham, did you have any?
No, as I attended the briefing last week, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just ask Richard, just give a bit of an idea of some of the complexities about moving between children and adults from a financial point of view?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously, within children's services, the children are not subject to financial assessments or charging, but as they move into adulthood, then they would become eligible under the Care Act for charging for contributions towards some services if they have the financial assets and means to pay. Otherwise, they would receive support through adult social care services fully funded. So it depends on their financial circumstances, and each case would be assessed on a case-by-case basis by one of my financial assessments and benefits officers, who would also support them to access any benefits or support that they may be eligible to as well. So is there anything else you would like to know?
No, that's great, and that just leads into my comment about how important this work is, and it is one of those really difficult things, and Andy's alluded to already the difference in eligibility for support that happens between children and adults due to the different legislation that's under, but also from the financial point of view in terms of contributions, because as just been confirmed that you don't contribute when you're a child. And I'd just like to sort of thank again the work that's been done, in particular with Room 1, and the fantastic facility that's been around for about a year now. Is that right, Andy? Yeah. So it's a really fantastic thing we've got there, and obviously transition has been a priority for this administration for a considerable amount of time. Certainly as long as I've been cabinet member, and in my year out as well, and London, may that continue, and really appreciates the report coming to a public forum, and so we can show the work that is being done. So happy to accept that. Thank you very much. Back to you then, Andy, for item 4, Victory Unit update.
Thank you. So in front of you is a very short paper. We've had a unit in Portsmouth that we've used as a reablement service, as a rehabilitation service, but when we needed to focus our resources on discharge to assess on the first floor of Harry Sotnick, that unit was closed because the staff were transferred over to Harry Sotnick House. We then briefly used the Victory unit as a hospital discharge service. That was in December last year during winter pressures, but it hasn't been used for any particular purpose since that time. We've been in discussion with Housing 21 about because they operate the supported living accommodation in Maritime House, and the Victory unit adjoins Maritime House, and they came to us with a proposal to adapt the accommodation there to provide more extra care housing. This is ground floor accommodation. It will be adapted so that people with significant physical needs can use it. As we know, in Portsmouth, ground floor accommodation is limited. And our ambition as part of our adult social care strategy is to build as much extra care accommodation as we need. So having these additional units within Portsmouth will be a benefit to our residents, and will offer people a real alternative to, if they can no longer live at home independently but don't need to be living in a care home, which is the purpose of extra care, having your own front door but having care available on site. So there's some detail on the second page about the process that we've gone through. We're slightly behind where we wanted to be in terms of starting work on this because we've had to ensure that the legal ramifications of surrendering a lease have been taken into account and come to that agreement. We had a meeting today, which I haven't yet had an update from, or last week, my apologies, I haven't yet had an update from, to give us a better time frame for when these works will start. But we anticipate that we'll see increased units, ground floor accommodation for the citizens of Portsmouth with care and support needs, and we're hoping that that will start soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Any comments, questions? No. Just thank you so much, Andy, for this update. I know we had a report to portfolio back when we vacated the Victory units back when we consolidated our discharge to assess during the pandemic, and since then I think a lot of work has gone on to what solution we could make for that space. And obviously with this, with Housing 21 now getting involved and giving us the nomination rights for that as for extra care accommodation, I think is an ideal outcome. And again, I think it's really important to have this update in terms of where we are with things in this public forum, and to make sure that we are open so people understand and can look back at this recording of this meeting to show about what is going on, and indeed can look at the papers if they need to on the council website. So, so thanks very much. Look forward to the update from last week's meeting, and then once we have that information, if we can circulate it to members in terms of giving an idea of what the timescale is for that. And then obviously it would be great once this facility is fully in motion. So that concludes the meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.
Everybody,